The vast, expansive world of J.R.R. Tolkien, constructed originally in 1937 with the release of The Hobbit, is unquestionably one of the most recognisable and highly acclaimed famous fantasy worlds in all of history. Through this, and due to this fame that it has accumulated, there have been a multitude of film adaptations that have, in one way or another, truly immersed us more in the realm of Middle-earth. Either they have been animated or constructed by Peter Jackson, or maybe even Amazon Prime as the recent Rings of Power. Today, we are going to be ranking all the primary well-known Lord of the Rings TV shows and movies. The Fellowship of the Ring, directed by Peter Jackson, as well as The Two Towers, The Return of the King, as well as the Hobbit trilogy, including The Unexpected Journey, The Desolation of Smaug, and The Battle of the Five Armies. And finally, we will be including the Rings of Power TV series, with the Rings of Power TV series obviously being the most recognisable series for the younger audience. Without further ado, let us begin this ranking of fantasy and explore one of the greatest series in all of fictional history on the big screen and deduce what movie is truly the best. In the number 7 position, we have The Fellowship of the Ring, as the first movie in the Peter Jackson series of The Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship of the Ring has a lot of jobs to do, including setting up the entire majority of the film, all its plot points, the primary antagonist, Saruman's betrayal. It truly has a lot of stuff that it needs to do, and in my opinion, truly hits a lot of these things. The one reason it is ranked at number 7 at the bottom of the list is because of the fact that Frodo is so annoying, constantly seeming to whine and always seeming to just be an annoying little brat. Gandalf is amazing, as well as Saruman, played by Sir Christopher Lee, as well as Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn. Truly some of the greatest actors and the perfect roles for these beings. Seeing Sauron and the One Ring's deep enriched lore truly was extremely exciting. Personally, my favourite part of the movie was towards the end, where we see Aragorn face off against Lurtz in the forest. We see Aragorn face off against Lurtz and nearly die. However, he was able to impale and then decapitate the orc in the end. In the number 6 position, we have The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, that released in 2012. The Hobbit is truly the peak of what Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth's CGI personally can come to, in my opinion, with the Erebor scene personally being my favourite scene at the very beginning. The Erebor scene, with Smaug desolating the entire area around, causing pine trees to inflame, seeing Balin, Thorin, and most importantly King Thror's obsession with gold was truly amazing to see, as well as Smaug's liquid fire emanating from his mouth. However, that final scene with Azog and the Defiler, as well as the Goblin Town sequence, and the Great Eagles rescuing them from the pinnacle of the pine trees after Thorin is incapacitated by a warg, as well as seeing Bilbo earn his place among Thorin's company as truly one of their own, is truly one of the greatest scenes in not only this movie, but in all of fiction, and truly sets the stage for the rest of the Hobbit trilogy to come. Personally, this movie is absolutely beautiful, truly reflecting the pure pinnacle of what the Hobbit beauty can come to. Starting off in Bag End, we enter into various locations such as Goblin Town, but it cannot match up to the Lord of the Rings of Power. Now, this is only here because of Galadriel, I have to be honest. Galadriel, in my opinion, is the greatest protagonist we have ever had. Better than Bilbo, better than Frodo. Galadriel is truly a phenomenal protagonist, with her complex character, her power, her beauty. Galadriel is truly one of the greatest characters in all of Lord of the Rings, a previously mysterious and eerie character. Her true personality has been truly fleshed out. I really enjoyed seeing the cameo of Durin's Bane, when the leaf clattered to the floor within the depths of Moria, seeing the Balrog awake from his slumber, and his fire ignite. But personally, my favourite scene would have to be all the scenes between Galadriel and Halbrand, who we later reveal to be Sauron, who only wants to mend the world, in his view, fix it, not destroy it like Galadriel and many other the elves see. We can also see a sort of romantic relationship between Galadriel and Sauron, although this does not persist. But if I had to pick one standout scene, I would pick the opening scene, where we see Galadriel laying down the helmets of fallen soldiers, and the Death of the War of Wrath, as well as Morgoth and the Two Trees. Coming in at the number 4, we have The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies is truly a phenomenal film, encompassing everything the Battle of the Five Armies was. We have a battalion of 10,000 elves, facing off against orcs and goblins from the Misty Mountains and Mount Gundabad, led by Azog the Defiler and his son Bolg. Although this differs from the canonical story, we can see Dian Ironfoot, whose head is registered as a lethal weapon in multiple different kingdoms around Middle-earth. Dian Ironfoot is personally my favourite character in the entirety of the film. We also can see Beorn tearing through ranks of orcs, using his monstrous might as a sort of animagus in Harry Potter words, and a shapeling. Beorn truly is a standout in this film. But in my opinion, Radagast and Thorin's scenes are truly the best, with Radagast being my favourite of Tolkien's characters, plural. In my opinion, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies encompasses truly what the Battle of the Five Armies was, including werewolves, wargs, incredible chasers. The CGI of this is amazing, and the final battle between Thorin and Azog is something to smile about. Coming in at number 3, the greatest Hobbit film is The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug is many things. Beautiful. It truly shines on Bilbo's character. Bilbo, in my opinion, is a much greater protagonist than the whining Frodo. We can see that all the gold that Smaug has acquired is eventually coming back to bite him. Smaug goes and begins to ruin Lake Down, which leads into the events of the third film. Smaug is awoken by the dwarves, with Smaug perceiving Bilbo bearing the one ring of power that belonged to Sauron, sensing something gold. We also have Smaug and Bilbo's famous conversation, something which truly has staked its claim within the minds of Tolkien fans throughout the entire globe, throughout the movie's history. Personally, the greatest one of the Hobbit movies. It's beautiful, with all the golden CGI animatics, including Smaug ripping himself from the golden lake he immersed himself in after Thorin created a statue of King Thror using molten gold, was truly amazing. Seeing Smaug was personally the highlight of this film. But I have to acknowledge that one of the other greatest parts is the Battle of the White Council of Dol Guldur. Now, we move on to The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which used to be my favourite. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is the second installment of the Lord of the Rings franchise, with Sauron and Saruman posing as the main antagonists. We see the Battle of the Hornburg, the Battle of Helm's Deep itself, personally one of the greatest battles in all of history. We see Gandalf reincarnated as Gandalf the White, coming back, freeing King Theoden from the influence and dominion of Sauron and Saruman. We see the Ents, with Treebeard personally being the second best character in all of Tolkien's works. We see the Ents going to war. We see Treebeard throwing rocks, ruining men and orcs, and attempting to break down the entirety of Isengard itself. Personally, there is few scenes greater than the scene in which Treebeard attempts to destroy the entirety of the orc battalions remaining at Isengard in all of cinema history. And I can barely think of one. In the end, in my opinion, the Ents were the standout of this film, and ultimately pushed it just that bit further above the Desolation of Smaug. The number one you should have all seen coming. Yes, my friends, we have The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the final installment of Peter Jackson's franchise. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King encompasses the entirety of the journey, the downfall of Sauron with Eri Ilúvatar intervening to cause Gollum to fall into the cracks of Mount Doom, dooming Sauron and his flaming eye and condemning him to spirit form for eternity. The destruction of the One Ring. We see the Battle of Pelennor Fields, one of the greatest battles in all of history. Gothmog the Orc lieutenant who serves under the Witch King, the death of the Witch King at the hands of Eowyn, the death of King Theoden King, the legendary Rohirrim. Personally, there is no better battle scene in perhaps all of fiction than that end scene where we can see Aragorn saying, "For Frodo," and entering into the ruin of the battle, knowing that it is almost certain that he will die. He does it anyway, and unites the men of the West, the hobbits, and all beings. In the end, this is truly signifying what perfect and pristine Tolkien films can get. And in my personal opinion, there is no Lord of the Rings or Legendarium film that truly surpasses this. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King not only plays host to the Battle of Pelennor Fields and the Battle of the Black Gate, two of the most easily recognizable Lord of the Rings battles in all of history, and just battles in all of history. We can see orcs, trolls, and even Gron, the legendary Hammer of the Underworld. Well, my friends, what did you think of this video? Did you enjoy these rankings we are producing? And updating to our manuscripts, we have just dispatched our spies in order to gain more information about the mysterious, eerie land of Mordor, which we'll be uploading a video about in the coming weeks. Farewell. This is where we part ways. Adorn yourself in your armor, men of the West, and head into the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.